So we've talked a lot. You guys have heard a lot from Tealium and from our customers. We talk a lot about customer data. But I want to kind of go a bit deeper, or maybe actually a better way to say it is to take a big step back from it today for a few minutes. You know, we talk about all the different data silos and how we have data all over the place and this web of complexity with trying to understand who people are. But I thought I would just, real quick, for those of you who maybe don't work with customer data as much, just a quick definition before we get in. First-party data, so this is what Tealium loves the most. This is what you know about your customers. We sometimes compare this to third-party data, which is what other people know about your customers. And then in the middle, which we hardly ever talk about, is second-party data. And this is data that somebody knows about your customers that you're sharing with them. So it's not necessarily an open set of data that's being shared, but it is data that maybe you have a partnership with a certain organization, credit bureau, something like that. So each of these have their own pros and cons. But as we talk today about the different types of data that we have, I think it's important to discuss what this is, how to understand it, and really respect the data relationship that we have with our customers. So we always have to have stats in presentations, so these are the stats in my presentation. And I think if you take your marketer hat off for a second and you put on your consumer hat on, the last time that you clicked on a banner ad, well, it probably doesn't happen as much. I'm like the worst person when it comes to advertising. I mean, I spend my entire life in marketing, and then I avoid at all cost advertising. I don't use any ad blockers because that would be, a sin. But I do pay more for things like YouTube or Hulu Plus or things like that actually avoid the ads. For that extra $3, it's a nice experience. But I'm probably someone that should be marketed to with certain things, but I'm probably harder to reach than I should be. And even when you do make it through and you do have an ad that's running, our numbers are flat. If I think back to Darren Archer yesterday and that first ad that ran on hotwire.com from AT&T that got a 40% click-through rate, Lord have mercy, a 40% click-through rate on anything, but all of these rates are really flat. And as we think about what we're trying to do all the time, we're trying to connect with our customers. We're trying to do something that goes beyond what we did years ago with just an ad and a catchy tagline. Who knows Casper? Do we know Casper? So a few of you. So Casper is disrupting the mattress industry, and now there's somebody trying to disrupt Casper, disrupting the mattress industry. But they're adopting a lot of traditional B2B tactics when it comes to engaging their customers and building long nurture programs to try to engage people along the way. And to do this, you need data. This is really the goal. This is what we're all trying to do. They talk about their product. They then take you on a long journey telling you about the mattress and how it's made and why it's better and why you're part of disrupting the establishment in the mattress industry, which who knew this was something that needed to be disrupted. And then they follow through in this whole, once you've done a certain number of things, then you start talking about building trust and what other customers, because again, you're buying a mattress over the internet that you're never actually going to sit on. So they're doing a great job with explaining this. Rusty showed some really great examples. I'd never heard of the Nivea one that he showed. Did you guys, where you rip out the magazine ad and then it has a chip that's insane. Domino's has done some great stuff with going beyond just the coupons that you get in the mail to actually having an app that lets you sprinkle on the Parmesan cheese on top of your pizza. It might be silly, but it's something that is an experience, and it's something that for the right customer that maybe is bored waiting for their pizza or just likes to play around and maybe took a break from Candy Crush for a moment to go and to build their pizza. There's value there, and when people are interacting with this, there's opportunity to learn more about them. I was chatting just a couple minutes ago with Oren, who's been our fearless producer, stage manager, stage caller throughout all of this, and he was talking about it's interesting with like the geolocation, the beacon data, and all this stuff that we can know about a consumer. And it might seem creepy, but if there's value in it, maybe it's not so creepy. So I think, and when we think about what this, the creepy factor, there's really a new balance of power. We started our day talking about that today, where consumers have more control than ever before. Customers want really great experiences on one side, and we as marketers and technologists need to build those great experiences. but we rely on each other. And we've never really had to do that before. We've never really had to work together and figure out what's the fine line and how do we continue to push that boundary between what is creepy and what's not. There's a great 30 Rock episode that talks about the uncanny valley. I won't go into all the details of it, but the closer and closer we get to a more automated or a virtual reality, it becomes creepier and creepier. So there's a fine line that we always have to acknowledge. So if your data sucks, you're never going to get there. So if we look at all the different types of data that we have and we just mishmash them all together and we try to call that a customer data strategy, we sometimes fall short. So I've chatted with you guys a lot over the last couple days. I haven't really shared much about myself, so I thought I would share some details about me, at least according to some of the third-party data brokers and BlueKai and Lotame and others. So has anyone done this where you go, well, BlueKai has a good one, I think Google has one as well, where you can go and view all the attributes? You've done it? It's crazy. So here's me. So I have 362 data points that I went through, actually line by line. They don't actually make it easy to export them. So you actually have to go and click into each one. I highly recommend doing this if you're a nerd that likes wine. It's really great evening activity during the week. So this is some of the stuff about me. I am a woman 27% of the time. Some of my team members might be like, yeah. I have 2 to 3 kids. I live in Tennessee. My family of 5 earns $2,000 over the federal poverty line. And apparently, I love Yoplait, boating, and board games. Other than Cards Against Humanity, I don't think I've played any sort of a game in a while. Boating, I would like to have enough money to get into boating, maybe, I don't know. And Yoplait, I hope no one's here from Yoplait. I don't think I've ever had Yoplait. So none of these are right for me. And if you think about what third party typically is compiled of, I'm on a site, I'm trying to buy a car, maybe I'm looking for a recipe for something, and people make assumptions. They, if I'm searching for insurance or I'm trying to buy a car, they'll say, oh, you know what, Adam's in the market for this type of car. He's looking at a new car versus a used car. Or maybe there'll be other places where they can maybe glean a little bit of information about, is he a parent or not? Did he look at a parenting website? So, if you think about my browsing habits, I might browse websites that women browse. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know there's men's websites and women's websites, but that could be, or we could probably be really stereotypical and say because I looked at a cooking website, maybe. I have 2 to 3 kids. I do not. I do have a nephew, but maybe at one point I looked at something about children. I don't know. I've been to Nashville once. It was very lovely. I don't live there, but it's, seems like it'd be a nice place to go. I don't know where they got my full family of 5 and my income level. That was kind of crazy and sad. And then no idea about the others. So if you think about trying to build an understanding of who I am and build an experience and try to target and nurture me through advertising and other channels, how would you do that? I have no idea. So we're going to hop over to the other side, and we'll talk about first-party data. But I'll stop calling it first-party data, I think, although I might do it, and maybe we'll put $1 in the jar every time I say first-party data from here on out. But this is what you actually know about your customer. And I think most of us take that for granted. I put an asterisk because I always feel that the Tealium customer is a better marketer and a better technologist and a better analyst than anybody else. But even we all take this for granted because we don't always take a step back because we're so busy and we don't think about what this is. Andrew Jones this morning talked about if there was one thing that we could do when we go home next week or tomorrow, it's to design our customer data thinking about what if. What if I knew this about somebody? What if I knew exactly what they were interested in and exactly where they were in the buying cycle and exactly why they came to my site or what it was about my messaging? What if I knew all of that? And then I could design the exact experience for that person. Instead of saying, okay, well, I have 5 personas, I'm going to jam all of my people into one of these 5 personas, and that's great. And we don't actually think about connecting this to the rest of the design, the development process. We just kind of follow the same old, same old. So I'm gonna continue telling a few things about myself. So I fly a lot. I'm kind of obsessed when I travel. I hid the name of this site, but nothing against this particular site. And so if we think about what I'm trying to tell this particular airline, in this case, I was searching for a flight to go from San Diego to Sydney, Australia. That's very far and it's kind of expensive, and I'm kind of prissy, so I like to find what possible way could I be not totally in a middle seat and somewhere that doesn't recline, and what can I do to make this as good as possible. I also work for a company that we book lowest possible price. You have to. So I'm looking around, I'm playing around. And I was thinking about this as I was clicking around on the site, and many times I clicked the sort by price. And this is one of those things where I am raising my hand. I'm actually saying, hey, I'm actually interested in saving some money on this trip. And if you think about the world that we live in digital versus 50, 60 years ago when you might have owned a corner drugstore, we don't have the ability to walk up to somebody and say, what's going on? How can I help you? Is there anything that I can do to build a great experience for you? So we have to rely on these clues along the way. And in this case, I was saying, hey, I need to find the cheapest possible way to get somewhere. But what could then happen? So maybe there's a bit of an intent, a bit of information that you might know about me. So maybe the action that would happen as a result is to say, look, maybe there's some other ways that we can save Adam some money, because obviously price is really important to him. So that's just in one instance. Maybe I'm at the other end of the spectrum and I value my time much more than my money. So I'm looking at the refundable options here. So, okay, I'm learning a little bit more. So that's one tiny little hand raise that happened. Now, over 20 searches that I might do in a week, or hundreds that I might do in a month or a year, I am raising my hand so many times trying to explain who I am to this airline or this brand, saying, this is what I want you to know about me. I think we don't often think that way. We don't often think about what are the things that are trying to be communicated to us by our customers and our users. We kind of get really stuck in the minutia of some of these things, and we look at the aggregates and the reports, but there are clues and hand raises that exist throughout here. So if this is all based on true data, this is trying to describe what this relationship is that I have with my brand. So again, I'm Adam. I'm searching for flights. I'm telling you that I'm really concerned about price, but maybe there are other clues in there that show you that I'm really prissy, maybe with my seat selection or something else, or I book way last minute. This is the relationship that I have with you. This is what I built, and this is how we communicate. And in one of those ways that we want to take a step back for a second, this is really how all relationships are. Your friendships, your love life, other things. What you know about each other is really the fundamental way that you build a relationship. What you share with one another, what you have talked about, the history that you share together. This is really cheesy, and I admit that. But it's if we think about that, that's really what's unique. In personal relationships, there will always be someone hotter and younger and funnier. But if you don't have that history with that person, that's what really endures in a lot of ways. Hopefully we all grow old and we have a great long relationship with somebody. The same thing goes in our relationships with our customers. So in our business, there will always be someone cheaper that stole my messaging, or has better messaging, or has a better design of their website or their mobile app, or they sell the exact same product that I do, or they stole my great idea for something. None of those things are really unique. My customer data, or really my relationship data, is the most valuable asset that I have. It's the only thing that actually uniquely describes my relationship with my customers, and it's one of the only things that's actually unique to my business. And so when we think about, I think Jeff put up a slide yesterday that talked about most of us use, for enterprises and mid-market, we use at least 21 different vendors just on our website and just for the front-end experience. Lots of you do 30, 40. We have lots of customers that do hundreds and hundreds of vendors that are implemented throughout their customer experience. And we think about where this data actually goes, what are we giving up and what are we telling that maybe is betraying that trust that we might have with our customers that we're building? Are we getting the right data together in the first place to make a true understanding of who somebody is? And then beyond that, are we actually respecting the data and the relationship that we've built so far? If I have a great relationship with somebody, we have shared years and years of history, and then I just run over here and I tell part of the story over here and part of the story over here. That's not really honoring and building this relationship. The same goes when we work with vendors and we share part of the story, or we share the story without thinking about what they do with it. Do they then resell and use this for their own purposes? If this is the only thing that's unique to my business, I need to actually protect that at all costs. This is part of that understanding of the relationship and the balance of power that exists between the consumer and the brand that hopefully you're building a relationship with. So I thought I'd put up a couple of thoughts on how we should probably approach working with our vendors. I think Tealium has done a lot about making it easier to implement vendors and making it fast and having extensions that allow you to do this, that, and the other. But I thought I would take a step back and thinking about 2 ways that we might want to start approaching the way that we work with vendors. Tealium obviously loves, we have 1,000 integrations out there. Our goal is to be the middle layer that connects everybody together. But let's start off and talk a little bit about rewarding openness. When we work with vendors, we want them to work with us. And that doesn't mean that they're going to say whatever they need to in a sales cycle to say, oh, this could be the best thing ever. There was, I think, Avinash Kaushik said a few years ago that I'll remove the vendor's name, the happiest you will ever be with this vendor is when you sign the contract. And then it's all downhill from there. And I think many of us have experienced that. Hopefully no one with Tealium. But it's really true. You get so spun up in the buying process that maybe it doesn't always fulfill the promise down the line, or you find yourself maybe stuck with something that wasn't the right solution for you. So I think it's important for us to look at rewarding openness in the vendors that we work with. So is this a vendor that is going to allow me to grow and change and evolve over time? If you think about who you're working with today from a vendor standpoint, probably not the same folks you were working with 5 years ago. Probably not the same folks you're going to work with 5 years from now. What's going to continue, hopefully, to grow and become a constant is the information that I'm learning about my customers, my understanding of them, the data. That's going to continue to grow and evolve. That's always going to be there. There might be some cool channel. Dan Cobby was saying, is the email going to be dead? No, maybe it's not dead, but we're going to have to look and evaluate, and maybe I'm going to have to move all of my messaging to Slack. I don't know what's going to happen in 5 years. So I need to work with vendors that also don't know where things are going to go in the next few years. So if they're open in the way that they can work together and work with customer data, that's going to be much more beneficial to me in the long run. And this is no offense to any company that says that they can do everything in their own umbrella and solve all these problems. But I think we all know that no one company can solve every problem ever. Then you wouldn't have 21 or 50 or 100 different vendors on your website. The other thing that's interesting is thinking about de-risking your implementation. And by this I mean let's take retargeting for an example. Which retargeter is best for your business? The answer is I don't know, and you don't know until you test them. So if testing is so important to knowing which vendor is going to give me the best lift in conversion rate or whatever the value of the ROI is that exists out there, why is it that we don't test vendors and make vendors actually prove their value to us out of the gates? So I think approaching our vendor relationships in a more of an experimental approach, if we experiment with every color of every button on our website, why don't we experiment and make vendors prove who they are and what they can do for my business, and are they going to work together as part of my open ecosystem? You all have Tealium IQ, I think. And therefore, we should make it a lot easier for you to be able to test either in small or large scale particular vendors. So why don't we buy vendors the same way? All the partners left, love them. And Tealium sales reps would probably not also love this. But if you think about, I want to do a proof of concept. I want to explore. I want to try things out. I want to see if this is right for my business. Why shouldn't I be able to do that? So in closing, I thought I would just leave you with a couple of thoughts here, and we do have some more materials as well on this that we can share digitally with you. But thinking about where that relationship exists with your customers, and where both in your role, your larger team's role, and your company as a whole, does your company understand and respect the data that's collected and, more importantly, shared? I love and I really encourage the concept that Andrew shared today of the what if. I think it's really, really common to be able to say, okay, well, this vendor doesn't do this, and this vendor can do this, and we think about, okay, what levers can we pull and what can we make possible in this particular technology? But we hardly ever get a chance, because we're so busy, to take a step back and say, what if I could do anything? What if there were absolutely no limits to what technology or what vendor APIs could yada, yada, yada? Well, what if I knew this about customer? How would I act differently? And then Dan Cobby said this earlier today, is where can we turn our vendor relationships into better partnerships? Because those are the ones that are going to endure, those are the ones that are going to listen to feedback, and hopefully those are the ones that are going to listen to the other vendors and technologies.